Charles Darwin studied plants as well as animals for decades and decades, and he ate them while he was studying, by the way. He was one of the first Western thinkers to say, hey, plants, carnivorous and non-carnivorous, they move and respond to sensation. I would love for any of us listening along in the audience today to go and talk to your plants while you water them, and then get back to me and let me know if you see a change in their growth pattern and whether you think that is some sort of vibe. History is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Today's question: should plants have legal rights? Now, a number of years ago, there was this fantastic conversation across so many disciplines regarding the idea of what's called legal personhood. And this was applied to the concept of higher order animals. When I say higher order, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm talking about non-human animals that are able to perform some of the cognitive tricks that were once thought unique to the genre of primates, currently calling itself human today. This is stuff like the idea of abstract thought, planning for the future, the idea of deception, the idea of understanding oneself, of metacognition, thinking about thinking. That's what happens when you look in a mirror and say, oh, that's not me, but is it kind of me, but it's not me? Some animals can do that too. It's amazing, right? And this argument, or this quandary, is moving forward in the world of plants. Related to this episode on legal personhood, we earlier did an investigation on whether or not plants, yes, fellow green thumbs, this is for you, whether or not plants could fit the definition of an intelligent being. Now, of course, the human canon, the human ivory tower, is at a disadvantage here because that's a species that has yet to arrive at a real definition of intelligence, has yet to arrive at the concept of a soul, has yet to arrive at a concept of sentience. Right now, one thing, this stood out to me. This, I would say this is technically strange news, but you're not going to see a debate about it on, your media avenue of choice. The idea came up in the news recently in some of the forums I follow, but it's largely inspired by a wonderful book that was written a few years ago called Brilliant Green: The Surprising History and Science of Plant Intelligence by a plant neurobiologist named Stefano Mancuso, along with journalist Alessandra Viola. Do you guys remember the episode we did on plant intelligence or the possibility thereof?
Ooh, it's been a minute, but I mean, I'm fascinated by the idea. I'm always like talking about mushrooms and their like networks of underground, like synapses and stuff. I do think it's a thing. No question about it.
I do remember being fascinated specifically with carnivorous plants and how that evolution occurred. And then like what caused that to happen. And was, I don't think we ever got to the bottom of whether or not plants think, because we just can't tell yet.
Yeah, it is fascinating, man. I'm right there with you because it's an older idea that needs more attention. Charles Darwin studied plants as well as animals for decades and decades, and he ate them while he was studying, by the way. He was one of the first Western thinkers to say, hey, plants, carnivorous and non-carnivorous, they move and respond to sensation. I would love for any of us listening along in the audience today to go and talk to your plants while you water them, and then get back to me and let me know if you see a change in their growth pattern and whether you think that is some sort of vibe, whether you think that is just that you are exhaling gases that are good for them, or, whether they instantly died, which means you might be a bad conversationalist. Like, I put that on you. Sorry, folks, forgive me. But the idea is responding to stimulus from an environment it is the nature of life, right? That's the reason rocks are apparently always rocks, unless they're naturally soft and they just harden up when you touch them. Just blew some minds in a freshman dorm somewhere. But this is strange because if we get to the root of it, we see that plants do exercise action in their environment, which indicates at least, people get mad when you say understanding or desire, but it indicates moves toward things that are good for them and away from things that are bad for them. We know, for instance, human beings may pursue things that are technically low-level poisons, right? Like people recreationally enjoy capsaicin, right? And that is something that has evolved to deter consumption of plants, of certain plants, right? Yeah,
Spicy,
and,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Peps.
We know that people and other forms of animals on this planet have enjoyed fermented things, which contain alcohol or some relation of alcohol that can also be damaging to a bodily system. But I've been thinking more. Mm-hmm.
Or
well,
psilocybin
is not necessarily damaging to a bodily system. In this, yeah.
Well, no, I just mean in terms of like things that plants beget that we enjoy. Also,
Right.
fruit. I mean, there's like a whole symbiosis with plants that we have this relationship with them, and we've tested it, and we know what will kill us and what won't. So there's an interesting sort of entry point to interacting with plants, like in terms of like
I'm drawing a
life
bright
on
line
Earth.
around those first two examples because they are things that are potentially dangerous to living forms. Unlike psilocybin, it's not naturally dangerous, which, despite what the war on drugs would have us believe. So when I was thinking about this, I was looking at a couple of fantastic articles. I reread part of Brilliant Green, and I went out on this patio I have where I'm living now and just watched the plants move. And I want to get kind of meta with this in the small amount of time we have. You think?
Smarter than us,
they
man.
know what they want. You can't say that about every human. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's a system. It's a very honed system.
So
that's all I'm saying.
Part of my question is, this is also a setup for an episode I think we could visit in the future. But part of my question for you guys, this, not to trick you into an interview, this is a series of me asking you and our fellow conspiracy realists what you think. Part of my question here, before we get to the meta aspect, is simply put this: if ever there were a widespread academic recognition of plants having some sort of legal right, not just like the plant, not just the tree that owns itself, out in Athens, Georgia, but something like something that says for legal purposes, destroying a forest is the same thing as mass murder. What would that mean for the world? Do you think that's even a thing that should or could happen? I don't think it could, but should it?
Well, it is illegal to set forests on fire unless you're a logging corporation or like a company that like owns it and can just like do it, unchecked. But it's a very interesting question because some of the things that I'm fascinated by involve being able to take of these things that these plants provide. And if all of a sudden the plant had this personhood, you'd have to like ask permission or something. But if you want to take the hippie kind of dippy perspective, it's like the plants want you to eat them. Like the psilocybin wants you to eat them. Like they're part of this system of the earth, like in terms of like that like network of these like underground networks of like electrically communicating kind of synapses that are mushrooms, that are this like kind of circle of life and existence. And like, they're not, I won't go so far as to say that they're there for us, but like they are a way of interacting with them. You eat a plant, you're not killing the plant exactly because it's just going to regrow itself. It's like cutting a lizard's tail off, like the ones that regrow. So I think it's fascinating. It's not like so even vegetarians who are so anti-factory farming and stuff, they're all about eating plants, and they're the ones that have the most aggressive opinions on life of any of us. So it's a very interesting question. Is all. I don't know the answer. Matt, what do you think, dude?
I just had a very, very clear picture of Norman Borlaug with a bullhorn standing up on a platform, and there's a wheat field, and he's just he asks he
Is
asks
it okay?
the wheat.
He says, is it okay now? Is it still okay?
We need you to feed us. Is that okay? And then
can we have your consent? Can you sign this PDF?